We invoke the grace of the Almighty. We seek His blessings to make this supreme knowledge a living reality in our lives. Our humble salutations to the entire Guru Parampara for having made it possible for this knowledge to reach us right at our doorstep. Om Tat Sat. Okay. Today is Discourse 17, Saturday, the 25th of April 2020. And the Hindu calendar goes as follows: Sharvari, Nama Samvatsar, Uttarayan, Vasanta Rutu. The season remains the same, but the month changes to Vaishakha month, Vishakha month. And it is now Shukla Paksha, meaning now we are moving towards the full moon, from new moon towards full moon, and Dvitiya, which means the second day in this process of 15 days. So, up to verse 38, Lord Sri Krishna in various ways tells Arjuna that you need not grieve. That has been the central theme over there, where he keeps on telling him in various ways, like if you consider yourself to be the Atman, this is the point. If you consider yourself to be the body, then this is what is the convincing point. Then if you consider yourself to be the Jiva, this is the point. So likewise, then he also takes under the path of righteousness, that is dharma, or from the worldly aspect, from all angles, you see what you're doing is absolutely right. You have unnecessarily misunderstood the whole thing. You have placed a relative in the place of a warrior, and you are getting confused about your duty. So then he starts from verse 39. As we saw, he starts the Buddhi Yoga, where it is basically knowledge or wisdom as far as how you can convert every act of karma into a yoga, which is Karma Yoga. Now the Lord knows what He has to give us to rise us from the place where we are, because we have surrendered to Him. And now it is His job, like as a baby, when it's the job of the mother to take care of the baby won't know anything. It has surrendered itself because the ego has still not set in. In the same way, we have to come to the state of being like a baby to the Lord. We don't know anything. Oh Lord, we are absolutely innocent. We are ignorant. We don't know anything what your Leela is. Please take care of us. So the more the surrender comes in, the more the surrender comes in, the more is the reach towards the Lord. So, Lord keeping in mind, I know now I have already started giving this Jiva, my Bhakta, the Jnana Yoga, but I know that he doesn't have a pure mind. So now how do I cleanse his mind? So there he comes out with the subject known as Karma Yoga, and he starts telling us, you do this in this manner and I will start cleansing your mind, and once your mind is clear, there is nothing between me and you. That is all what is required. Chitta Shuddhi, a pure mind, and Chitta Ekagrata, a concentrated mind. So for that, he starts taking you on a journey, like where and what you need to do. And this is all like he's giving you directions in terms of a practical. You have to now start imbibing all this into your life. Like you want to get into, say, an IIT or an IAS. There are these entrance tests, as you'll know. And to what extent is the preparation for this entrance test to the IIT? My God, nowadays students have even started studying from 8th standard for IIT entrance. Earlier we had heard that start after the 12th. So that is the intense preparation which is required. And there you have to put in hard work. So children who sacrifice their so-called very beautiful college life and school life, they sacrifice that for the sake of something higher. So even here, now we have that intention in mind that we need to merge with the Lord. We need to merge with our true self, and enough of these worldly pleasures, because they come, they go, they toss you up and down. What is the point of again and again going in for the same thing which is not there? Rather, you go for that thing in which all these are there. So as we move forward, we'll learn more about this. So he says, now I want to purify my mind, and then there he starts. From the verse, if you see, 39, he says, I want to break this chain of your karmic cycle, where I want you to dedicate your karma towards me. Just say, I'm doing it for the love of the God. And then he says, when you think of God in the altar of dedication, it automatically becomes a silent meditation. And the benefit of this is the karma phala which you ought to get out of this. For every action you get a result. So the karma phala eventually happens to be, since it is dedicated to me, it is only going to give you chitta shuddhi. Because he as a mother, he knows what we want for the child. So he says, okay, that chitta shuddhi starts happening. So he says, you focus on that. And do not focus on the, irrespective of the result, do not focus on that. In this way, your mind, with no impurity from outside, is completely dedicated. And in the next verse 40, he says, this chitta shuddhi, the moment you start practicing this, it will give you sukham, happiness. In between, if you also stop an action after having pledged or vowed to do it, as per the karma kanda, it results in pratyavayu, meaning it is a sin, because you have not fulfilled what you have taken as a vow. But I will see that those kind of sins also do not touch you, because there is an offering in my favor. Pratyavayo na vidyate. And even if an action is imperfect while you are doing, I will see that you will not be getting any negative marks on this front also. Swalpamapyasya. He says, Swalpamapyasya. Just do little, you start, and you are completely under my wings. So there was one question like, what do I get for the next birth? So here he says, with this practicing of karma yoga, simple dedication of your duty for the love of God, what happens is, for some reason, as per the prarabdha karma, if the jiva has to pass away, but they are already on this path, they have started, Lord says, I will ensure that you will be born in a family which is very conducive for such practices. And then he goes on, just have that Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and the Prasada Buddhi, nothing else. Peace is always on your side. See how he's assuring us one by one. And then in the 41st verse, he there again says, you become a person who is working with a selfless attitude in mind. He says a selfless man is at peace and a selfish man is at pieces. So likewise, he goes on in the 42nd word, he again says, you have to give up your pleasures. You should not have anything else in your agenda. There are people who have desire as their main agenda. Desirelessness is not in their orbit. God for such people is only for fulfillment's sake and not for God's sake at all. And their whole spiritual endowment is for joy and joy alone. So he does not really certify these kind of behaviors, because he's saying you're not achieving the ultimate. There is something more to achieve. And me as a mother, as a parent to you, I want to give you the best. Why are you stuck in these small things? And he says these people, for the sake of all these pleasures, they perform only these. From the Vedas, they take those flowery words of the Vedas, do these kind of pujas, do those kind of yagnas for the fulfillment of their routine pleasures and gains. So then he comes on to now the next verse. Now we have studied up till this point as of day before yesterday. Now we start with the 45th verse. Before that, a relevant question was asked by Kamini Kaushik, where she said, like, when we go to a temple, we pray to the Lord that, we have, I want this, whatever we are having as a wish list. So there, I would like to answer that question at much more depth as to what Lord Krishna says for the same thing. This actually comes in chapter 7. Okay, I'll just precisely tell you what he has to say for this. Okay, he says, this is chapter 7 verse 16. Chaturvida bhajante mam janaha sukritinor artho jignasu artharti jnani cha bharatarshaba. He says there are 4 kind of virtuous men who worship me. One who is an arti. Arti means the distressed. So distressed is where he has problems with health, problems with his relationship, or he wants to buy something, like he wants to buy a house, or he wants to get a job for his son, or daughter not getting married, or children not having, not able to bear children. So these kind of usual things, what are their wishes in our life? This is the first category, arthaha. Then he says the second category is artharthi. Artharthi are the people who want to seek wealth. He says, I want my business to grow. I want more money. I want to buy this. I want to buy that. So purely they are for materialistic gain, seekers of wealth. The third one, he says, are the category known as Jignasuhu. Jignasuhu means there he is a seeker of knowledge. We come under that category now. I said, no, we are spiritual seekers. We want to seek that knowledge, which means you are above this artha and artharthi. So this is the third category, and the last category is the Jnani. Jnani means the wise. So artha, artharthi, jignasu and Jnani. And in the next shloka, he says, of these 4 types, which is the best? Or who is dearer to him? That is what he answers. He says, Tesham Jnani Nitya Yuktaha Eka Bhaktir विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनो त्यार्थमहम aham sacha mama priyaha. So he says, O Arjuna, out of these four categories, the Jnani is dearest to me because he is established in me. He comes to me with nothing else in his mind. He just says, I am missing you. I want to be with you. I want to be at your lotus feet. I want to merge in you. Give me that bhakti, jnana, vairagya, whatever it is which is I need to reach you as fast as possible. Please give me that. And finally, the jignasu becomes a jnani. Now here, having said this, now I would like to tell you all from the perspective of as a seeker, where we are doing a journey together. Once Sri Krishna and Arjuna were taking a stroll in their kingdom, and it so happened that as they were walking along the path, a well-to-do businessman, he comes there. He sees Lord Krishna, he offers salutations to him, and then he prays to him. Oh Lord Krishna, see, I'm now doing this business, and I want to expand my business. I'm planning to do so and so, this, that. He really discusses all his projects with him. Now Sri Krishna listens patiently to that businessman, and so he says, okay, tatastu, may it be. And the businessman goes away. Happily, now he has met Krishna, he has taken his blessings, he is very happy, he goes away. As they move forward, a poor Brahmin comes, and he bows down to Lord Krishna, and he says, Oh Krishna, I have one cow. By selling the milk of that cow, I raise my family, and that's all what I have. But now I'm in terrible sorrow. Reason being, the cow is sick, and I don't know what will happen to it. I'm terribly disturbed, without which I don't know how I'll lead a life ahead. Oh Krishna, please save me from this. Please save the cow. So he prostrates, he has tears in his eyes, and a very genuine prayer. And okay, Lord Krishna blesses him, and he goes ahead. Now, after a few weeks, the businessman again appears there. They are again in the usual course, they are taking a stroll, and they appear. He appears, and Lord Krishna says, okay, he's very happy businessman. He says, oh Lord Krishna, you blessed me. I tell you, everything is going so well, much beyond my expectation. And he's really jumping in joy. And again he offers salutations, and he takes leave. Krishna says, okay, nice to hear all that. Now the poor Brahmin comes, and with a face hung in sorrow, he comes there and he stands in front of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna asks him, what happened? He says, what to tell you, O Lord? The cow died. Then Lord Krishna blesses him, and he says, don't worry. And that's all. Now the poor Brahmin leaves. Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, that businessman, he already had so much, and he asked you for 10, you gave him 20, and this poor Brahmin had only one cow, and that also you took away from him. It's a very good question. And see the situation. The Lord says, as per the prarabdha, what that businessman had to get, he is getting. And there, he is come to this planet to enjoy the worldly pleasures. He has got no interest in God and other things. He just wants pleasures, luxury, money. That is what he wants. And he got it. Then why did you at least take this one cow from this poor Brahmin? He says, Arjuna, this Brahmin is a true devotee of mine. And what was coming in between me and him was that one cow. Because the cow was getting sick again and again, he was not able to do his prayers, his sadhana, whatever he was doing to reach me was all into a mess. So now I have taken the cow, and what I have done is I have already arranged all that needs to be done for his daily needs, and he can completely devote as service to me. So here, why I am saying this is, Lord knows what we want. And we should not forget that the karmic theory is in force. It keeps going. And we will get what we need to get, or what we are destined to get, with some variation. So here, God, when you seek for the highest, He will take care of you. Now, this poor Brahmin, I don't know, whatever he was getting for his daily needs, God has given him more by where he is connected to a well-to-do person, and just to do small chores of puja in his house, his entire family is taken care by that rich person. So there, what the Brahmin is doing puja again in the house of the rich person, and he's doing all his sadhana, and is better placed than what he could do with that small cow, or with that single cow. So he knows what we need. So we have to focus more on devoting our love to him and leave the rest to him. Another very interesting story which can make this point very clear. See, why I'm taking much more time on this and trying to impress you all upon this is, see, we are all there. We are in this world, and we are also, or we all have attachments, and we all have our hands on in terms of various pleasures and things like that. And when you are on this fence, you should know how to move ahead in life. What exactly happens? Should I keep on praying for the usual stuff required for my life, or should I pray for the higher? If I pray for the higher, then what happens to what I need to fetch for my enjoyment in this life? All these questions are there. So I would narrate another story of Lord Krishna and Sudama. You all know this story, I'm sure. But this is very relevant at this point. Sudama and Krishna were great buddies. This chadi are what we call, from their school days. They both studied under the Rishi Sandipini in their ashram. And as they completed their studies, they went back to their homes. And Sudama eventually turned out to be a very, very poor, dissolute Brahmin. A situation arises in his family. He has wife, children, where he is not able to even give them one square meal a day. Forget about clothes and other things. So wife was terribly upset on this. And she knew that Sudama's great pal is Sri Krishna. And she also knew what is the glory of Lord Sri Krishna. So when things were going beyond control, she said, you talk so much about Lord Krishna. Why don't you go and get something in favor so that we can at least have one meal a day. See the fate of the children. Now here Sudama has consistently resisted not to go and ask Sri Krishna for favors, personal favors of this kind. But a point comes where his wife is furious and he eventually says, okay, I'll go. He starts his journey. Now when you're going to a friend, you need to take some gift or something, no, to your friend's place. So he manages, there's nothing in their house. So this lady goes to 3-4 houses and she collects some this dry poha, what we call it, chivda or something like that. So she collects that and she bundles it up in a piece of cloth which is also torn, and she gives it to Sudama. Poor fellow, he takes that and he starts walking to Dwarka. Now after a few days of journey, he reaches Dwarka, and as usual you have the Dwarpalaks at the gate. They don't allow him to go inside. He says, Sri Krishna is my friend. They laugh at him. Looking at his state, he is in a torn dhoti. He doesn't even have an upper garment, excepting a small piece of towel, a gamcha type. In a pathetic state, dirty, and not at all presentable. And he's saying, Krishna is my friend, the King Krishna. Now, there are various grades of guards in protocol. So like after 3-4 guards come in of the higher ranks, they all were only just laughing at him. Then one of the chief of the guard, he was passing by on a horse, and he checks. He says, what's happening here? Why this man is here for such a long time? I saw him while going. He says, sir, he's saying that Lord Krishna is his friend. And he had some sense. He says, okay, anyway, I'm going to meet him only. I'll check with him. What's the harm? And he asks, what is your name? Sudama. Okay. He goes. He had to report something to Lord Krishna. So he goes there and he reports to Lord Krishna whatever he had to in the usual course of business. And then he says, sir, somebody by name Sudama is at the palace gates. The moment he said Sudha, he has not even completed the full name Ma also. Sri Krishna just gets up. He doesn't even wear his footwear. He starts running from there to the main gate. Everybody is astonished. The ministers, the queens, the guards. We have never seen our king running away like this. There is a protocol. He does not go to receive anybody. Who is this person, Sudama? He is not any great king or Chakravarti or a sage or sannyasi, sadhu like that where we have heard of him. Who is this? Everybody is inquisitive. Sri Krishna runs and runs, and with that one breath he goes and he embraces Sudama. Tears are flowing down his eyes. Same with Sudama. They are meeting after a long time. In that state of ecstasy, he calls for his rath. He makes him sit in the rath and his chariot, and he brings him to the palace. With great honor he brings him to the palace. He makes him sit on his throne. Imagine a throne, a golden throne studded with precious gems, jewels, diamonds. A person filthy, stinking, with torn clothes, he is sitting on the throne, and it's the practice where they wash the feet of the revered. So he brings a golden plate, places below his feet, and he wants to wash his feet with water, but so much of tears are flowing down his eyes. That's enough to wash his feet. So much of love. Because Sudama also has the same amount of love. And after that, yeah, he takes him to freshen up, gives them a divine bath, good clothing, and he tells the queens to prepare the best meal possible, gives him a feast, and then after everything is done, he asks him, Sudama, you didn't bring anything for me? Now, poor fellow, after seeing all this, from where will you remove that chivda, what he had in the torn cloth? He says, no, nothing. He said, so Krishna says, you're hiding something, I can see that. And he grabs it and he literally jumps on it. Everybody is astonished again. What is this? And then Krishna is waiting, he'll ask something. Then Sudama says, I want to leave. I'm so glad that I met you. I want to leave. And he leaves. He doesn't ask anything. Now, on the way, it struck him, oh my God, I had come here to ask Sri Krishna for some help so that I could feed my family. But eventually, anyway, it's okay. And he starts walking towards his house. There he goes, and he sees that his house is no more there. Oh my God, what happened? What mistake did I commit? My house is no more here, it's lost. What happened? Where is my family? There he sees a rich lady decked with jewels, clad in a silk saree, or looking like a queen. He goes there and he asks that lady, oh, my dear lady, there was a hut over here, what happened? Now that lady says, my dear husband, it is your wife here. He's shocked. This is our house. What? Palace? How did it happen? I don't know, suddenly it happened. So God knows what to give us. We just need to surrender and offer Him our true love. That's all. Just ask Him for love, love and love. Nothing more than that. Rest He'll take care. Okay, and we'll move ahead. Now, verse number 45. Okay. Please repeat after me. This is chapter 2, verse number 45. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvastaha Niryogakshema Atmavan. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvastaha Nityo Niryogakshema Atmavan. Now here he brings in in this verse, he basically talks about the three gunas. You all must have heard about these three gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas. So here he primarily speaks about that. He says, Arjuna, be it even a businessman who is doing business, and in his daily work, that swadharma, if he does that with an offering of whatever he is doing to the Lord, then it becomes karma yoga. So under that, which means now what are the three gunas? Sattva, rajas, and tamas. So these are the three attributes which are basically categorizing the nature or the temperament of a person. He says sattva, where there is love, compassion, dedication, service, purity of the mind, and wanting only to give. Now the next quality comes rajas, where it is you're all the time active to gain something in this life. It could be name, it could be fame, power, designation, wealth. This is where you are continuously rajas, you are all the time vibrating for the worldly pleasures. And the third one is tamas, wherein your qualities are just the reverse of sattva. You're not a good person, you're not a loving person, you're not a compassionate person, you never care for anybody, only you come first, then the rest, not wanting to do much, just want to have a laid off lifestyle, easygoing, crooked. These are the attributes. Now he says, I want you to be Arjuna nistraigunyo. Nistraigunyo means I want you to be outside the purview of all these three attributes. Not even sattva, he says. Now, you mean to say you prescribe, if a doctor gives a prescription, okay, if it is not available in that hospital or nearby, you go to the main center, you don't get there also, then you go to a larger city. At best, you can import it from anywhere else in the world. But nowhere it is available. What is the use of that prescription? He says, oh Krishna, if you give me this kind of an prescription where you say nistraigunyo, be outside the purview of the three gunas, he says, wait, I'll tell you how. But you aim at that. Because as far as you are within these three gunas, you will still be in the cycle of birth and death. I want you to cross that. I know, don't worry, I'll tell you. The first one, be nistraigunyo, outside the three gunas. And then second it says, nirdvandvaha, free from the pair of opposites. Raga, dvesha, labha, nashta, sukha, dukkha, all these opposites, be free from that. Meaning you have to be a sthita prajna, with equipoise in all these stages. If there is happiness, don't jump about too much, because sadness is just at the door. And the same applies when you're sad. Don't get drowned too much. Happiness is just at the door. That is what a human life is. It goes on. Happiness, sadness, one after the other. They keep coming and going. So be in an equipoise state. Otherwise you will be all the time disturbed. Then how will you meditate? And how will you be with me? Say you have a dear one, a loved one, and you want to spend time with your loved one. And if you're all the time busy, then what will you do? How will you have time to spend? So if you want to be with God, you have to be free from all these tasks in your mind. Something or the other is always happening. Then the third one, it says, ever remain in sattva. That is at least the best place to remain. Be in that sattva position. Why? Because sattva takes you to the higher worlds. Like Mahar, up to the Brahmaloka. The first three are Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. Maha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. These are the four upper worlds. They take you to the upper worlds. And Rajas is always in these words. Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. These three words. You will not go higher. But you will be circling only here. And at some point you can go lower also. If you are in Tamas, you are surely granted to go to the Adho Gachanti. Where? Downward. Worlds where this Atala, Sutala, Vitala, Talatala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Patala, these are the 7 lower worlds. You will go there. You will be an insect, a worm, or a plant, or an animal, or a bird, or whatever, fish, whatever. This will be your state. So, aim to be in Sattva always. And Niryoga Kshemaha, free from yoga is acquisition, Kshema is preservance. Be free from acquisition and preservance, because there again you will be spending your time only in that. And last one, it says Atmavan, that is, be established in self, established with the Lord. Now you all must be aware, we chant Om 3 times. There is a significance for this. Om comprises of 3 basic syllables, that is A, U and Ma. So when you are saying Om, A, U, Ma, it is, you are basically saying, I am not the gross body, I am not the subtle body, I am not the causal body. When you say Om first time. And then there is a gap in between, if you see, before going to the next Om, that is known as Turiya, which Turiya in Sanskrit means fourth position. That silence is the Supreme Lord. And then you say Om again. There you say again, I am not the waking state, I am not the dream state, I am not the deep sleep state. And again you give a gap. There, in that silence, you invoke the presence, the awareness of that Chaitanya inside you. And then the third stage, when you say Om, it is, I am not the Sattva, I am not the Rajas, I am not the Tamas, Guna. So this is where he tells Arjuna, and this needs more of explanation. I'll take this up tomorrow. But however, next question of Arjuna is, if I don't perform action for pleasure and joy, Krishna, what will happen to my happiness? Will I not lose it?